Hello everybody, CW here. I want to talk to you a little bit today about a topic that's been requested from a couple of viewers and a couple of friends of mine. Talking about neck tension. I've made comments a number of times that it's the biggest contributor to accuracy, and I believe that it is. It's the biggest thing that you can do, the best place for you to focus efforts at to produce better, more accurate, more consistently accurate ammunition. And one of those aspects is the sizing of your neck. The way most reloading dies do it is with a expander ball. Now there's a number of different theories on that. There's tapered, there's elliptical, there's carbide, there's titanium, titanium nitride, a number of different things that manufacturers do and use to help in this area. Part of that being the carbide, the nitride coated, is to make them slipperier, because pulling that expander ball back through your neck after you size a bottleneck case is a large contributor to extending, stretching, causing additional trimming of your cases. So I'm not going to really address that aspect of it, but it is a real thing. What I want to talk about is Mandrel dies. I had a pretty good conversation with one of the guys about this, and I referred him to a number of other videos that were done, and one of them was Desert Dog on YouTube here, and he did a really good informative explanation, and he used US something. I can't remember the name of the dies now. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, they're a really good product. They're probably more than your average reloader is going to need. They're probably something that your extreme precision guy is going to want to play with. Your average reloader who's maybe stepping up his game a little bit and pursuing a little better accuracy, probably as far as he's going to need to go to improve in this aspect, and that's going to be a Mandrel die in place of a expander ball in your sizing die. To make that process easier, I'm going to suggest you pick up and use a good universal sizing die, a universal decapping die. I like the Mighty Armory, but there's a number of them that are great out there. This video is going to be about the Mandrel dies, so we won't go into that. But with our move from dry media, cleaning the cases, tumbling, to wet tumbling, this may be something you already have done. Get a wet tumbler and get a universal decapper, because you want to decap all your brass before you clean it for wet tumbling, because you want to be able to clean out and get the inside of that primer pocket clean, and because we're talking about fluids, it makes the cartridges, the cases, easier to drain, faster to dry. If you're doing them with the primers in, it's going to take you much longer to dry them out, and you're always going to have a little bit of water in there. When you have the primer out, you've got that flash hole that allows air to pass through and the cases to dry out better and more efficiently. So like I say, this may be something that you're already using, and this is just a step that's going to go along with that, because as you move to a Mandrel die, you're going to remove your decapping pin out of your sizing die, and you're not going to use it anymore. So you're going to lose your ability to deprime with that die. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. If you're watching this and considering this, you should know exactly what I'm talking about, because we're stepping above basic reloading. But here is your sizing die, and your sizing die is part of a 2-die set in this RCBS, and what it gives you is a decapping pin to knock your primer out, and built into the decapping pin holder, the little threaded part that holds the decapping pin in, is your expander ball. And we're going to go into here with some measurements, and I'll show you just why this is not your best tool for consistent neck diameters, which equate into consistent neck tension, which equate into much better, more consistent accuracy with your reloads. So let's move this all around. Let me get my mug out of the picture. Let's get you on what I'm talking about here so you can see what and why you may want to consider a mandrel die. Stand by. All right, sorry for the funky angle here, but I had some pretty bad glares, even though I've got really good bright light. I really like this this tool right here. It's just a holder, but it's got a really thick base, cast base, and it just holds the caliper here really good. So let's open this up and get some diameters here on our expander ball. Now this is a 6.5 diameter. This is my 6.506 RCBS die set. So we're 0.26145. So now we are quite a ways out for dimensions. Okay, we're obviously under an inch, well under an inch. We're just over a quarter of an inch. 250.250 being quarter of an inch. We are just a little bit bigger than that. So when you get out those last two digits, it's quite minuscule a dimension. So you're going to see that number fluctuating and changing. Know that it's a very tiny amount, really smaller than you really need to worry about. Definitely the 5, but the 4 is getting to the point where, unless you're seeing big jumps in numbers, it's probably not enough to worry about. But the 1, 261, if you know your dimensions of your bullets, 6.5 millimeters, 0.264 of an inch for most calibers. There is some militaries that are going to be different, but for the sake of what we're talking about here, we're just going to talk about 0.264 being the bullet diameter that you're going to be using. And I chose 264 6.5 millimeter because of the popularity of the Creed caliber. I prefer the 6.506 and the Swede and the little Grendel, but I have nothing against the Swede. I have nothing against the Creed. It's a really good caliber. It bridges the gap between all those. It exceeds some of them. Works better than some of them. Doesn't get quite the velocity of other ones, but it's a really good caliber. But again, we're just talking about 264 because it's the caliber that's popular, and I'm hoping that it's going to be able to equate to easier understanding. So we're measuring the expander ball on this RCBS die. So 26145. Just going to move it just a little bit. 2613, 2614, 2612, 2612, 26155, 2614, 2615, 2613, 2615, 2613. So this one is actually pretty good. We're actually pretty good dimensions, pretty round. I've seen these off quite a bit. And I was kind of hoping that this one would be just to drive my point home about consistency of diameter. So we're really consistent. Very round. So, you know, it kind of ruins my argument, but you know what I'm talking about. There is generally a variance here, and this one just happens to be a pretty good one. Here is a mandrel. Now, if you look on here, look right up on here. I'm looking through the camera there. It's kind of hard to read with the glares, but it says 6.5. Now, I mentioned that US manufacturer. This is a Wilson tool, and it's what I prefer. It's a good tool. It doesn't give you quite the ability to choose your neck diameters, tensions, as you'll find with the US brand. That one gives you a lot more options in mandrel diameters, so you can really tailor to suit your accuracy, what your rifle wants, what your rifle likes, what your gun shoots well. But for the sake of argument, we're just going to rely upon a better tool, a more consistent round diameter, and a larger surface area to create an opening of more consistency. And again, consistency equals accuracy with a rifle. So you've got that little bitty band, that little tiny bitty surface area there, which is probably less than 1/8 of an inch, or it is less than 1/8 of an inch. There's a little bit of spring back always. So when you've got a bigger, larger surface area, you know, that's going to be a full 1/4 inch plus of area. And the way this die works, the way this mandrel works rather, is obviously it's tapered here like a pencil so that it's easy to find and enter into the case mouth. But as you go up, you can probably see the mark from use here. Okay, this is the only area that's the full diameter that we're looking for making our case necks. As it goes up farther, and I'll show you, it gets smaller in diameter until we finally hit this shoulder bump, which is just the design of the case where they had to thread it, and they decided to put the tool marking on there for the caliber, and then they thread the top and they put this knurl nut. Now this nut comes with the die, and this is part of the die, and we'll show you the die a little bit later. But let's just get some measurements off this mandrel. So we're going to put this in here, and the way this tool here works is you've got a coarse adjust and a fine adjust, and if you do this, it's got like a ratchet, so it's fair, consistent setting. So right away you can see we're a full 0.002 plus larger in diameter than that expander ball. Generally, I want to see 1 to 2 thousandths of neck tension in my brass from the diameter of my bullet, so a little bit less. So 263. Now we're going to get some spring back. The die is going to bring that down pretty small. This is going to bring it back up, and then we're going to get spring back smaller. So they've taken that into consideration, and we'll measure the brass down the road here if this video doesn't get too long. Otherwise we'll have to get it into two parts. But let's measure some more on this mandrel. Turn it into, again, 263, 263, 15, 263, 25, 63, 2, 15, 15. So we're what's that, 1/10,000th? Yeah. Half a 10,000th difference, if I'm reading that properly, in the diameter of this. So as consistent as this was, we're much more consistent here, and we're bigger. So let's put our die together. Let's look at our die, and I'll show you how that works and what that pertains. Stand by. All right, here's the die. It's typical die body that you're used to seeing with any reloading dies. It's just a little nicer polished, and it's got a window in it. And the window is nice because it lets you see the brass up inside to see where it's going and what's going on. You can't really see it do anything, but it's nice to know exactly where it is in there when you set up the die. You want to be really careful. Now we know that this right here is the only part that's doing the work. So once it gets over that, once the whole neck goes through that you could stop it anywhere in here with the end of the brass. Stop it anywhere up in here, and you're going to have the complete neck sized as it's supposed to. But you want to be careful you don't crash into the top of this here, because you're going to harm your brass. You're going to hurt your brass and probably destroy it. So when you set this part of the die up, you want to be real careful that you don't thread this in too far, thread this whole thing in too far, so that it causes the end of your brass to crash into here. When I set this up, I like to set it up to give me as much window as I can. You want to get, you want to get probably at least 1/4 inch or so threaded into the top of the press. You do not want this die to contact your shell holder. You don't need that. It's not like set up with other dies. You just want to have a good view of the window. This is probably a little bit deep in the die, in the press from what I would like, but there's not a whole lot of threads there. The 3006 case is a longer case, so you don't have as much latitude, but this should work out fine. And then you hold this over here and you kind of give it an eyeball, and you see that thread is going to give us what we're looking for. So you just tighten this on here, finger tight, tighten the knurling on there so this doesn't move, and then put this whole thing in the top of the die. Now the other manufacturer's die is a spud. This Mandrel is like a spud. It almost looks like a bullet with a rim on it. And you just drop it in the die and you screw your top on. And you screw it down until it touches and then back it off a little, because it lets it float. So you're not knocking out your any of your precision that you've built into your brass case when you've resized it and formed it and made your case. So that is a nice aspect of the other die that this one doesn't have, but this hasn't been a problem for me. So there we go. All right, so then we're starting the brass up into there, and we just push it up, and it's opening the neck up. We didn't hit the top. Take it back out. We just opened up that case neck to the diameter that we want. Now this is a dummy case that I have in my shell box here to use for making dummies. This is one of my dummies, no powder, no primer, for setup for the bullet when I reload. So I just grabbed this. And one part I did not show you that I should have, excuse my reach, is you want to lube the inside of your case necks. And this stuff is really good. And all you do is be real careful. Don't breathe heavy. This stuff is very, very, very fine. If you're a powder coater, you'll be familiar with the fineness of this powder. Just breathing on that will create a big puff, and it makes a mess. Just dip your case neck in there, tap it off, and make sure you don't have an excessive amount, because you're just wasting it. You only need a little bit. Tap it off, and then run your case up in there. So let's reset up here, and I'll show you one real case, and we'll measure it before and after and see what kind of a spring back we're getting. Stand by. All right, I'm behind the camera here so I can see what I'm doing. Let's measure these case necks. Sorry, I bumped the camera. And we're going to use our dial caliper here. So what we've got here is spinning them around to make sure that there's no debris and we get a good measurement. And we've got Walter texting us, so I can't see what I'm doing. We've got 2, 6, almost 2, 262 almost on the nose for an inside neck diameter. Let's check this one. Same thing. Right on, sorry for the glare, right on 262. All right, let's go back over to our die. Apply a little bit of lube. As I mentioned to you, you just take and you stick it in your lube. It fills up. See, it's full. bang it off. You don't need that much lube. Let's do our other one. Stick it in. Again, it fills up. Bang it off. Check it out. Good. Set that aside. Again, we don't want to make a mess, so let's just cap it off. I can't stress enough how much of a mess this stuff can make. It's like graphite powder. And then we're going to take our cases, which we've already set the die up, run it up into the die and back out. Set it down here, run it up into the die, back out. Let's try it again. Get another measurement here. Just slipping behind the camera. Same thing, up inside the die, up inside the case mouth. And we are now pretty close to the same, because that expander ball that was in that die is pretty good. We're about a 1/2 thousandths larger. Now that's the spring back. Even though we were almost 2 thousandths bigger with that mandrel, 1/2 to 3/4 of a thousandths more. Even though we were more consistent with this mandrel, that particular expander ball was doing a really good job for us. You will not find that across the board. This particular die set was a custom die set, being 6506. I had to get it directly from RCBS back in the day, and it came out of their custom order department. So I'm going to guess here that it probably saw a little more stringent control when it was made, which is the reason that we're seeing that here. So there we go. This is the setup that I use. The die that I prefer, I really like Wilson dies. I really like their product line. There's full instructions with the dies on how to use them. Basically going over everything I've gone over. They have, and this is not a review. This is a die that I've had, and I just recently picked up some more mandrels for. I've had it in 6.5 for a while, and I picked up a 6mm when I started playing with the 6mm rim. Last year, 2 years ago, and I just ordered 25. So I picked up a 30 caliber, a 22 caliber, the 26 I had. I picked up a 7mm, and the 6mm I had picked up a couple years ago. So now I've got a full set of their mandrels. These mandrels run about 15 bucks a piece. I recommend you buy them from places like Midway or such. You can pick them up, or any one of the precision reloading, any one of the number of reloading places online. You can get them for about 15 bucks a piece. If you buy them from Wilson, you're gonna pay full retail. I had to buy the 25 from Wilson because nobody had a 25. Nobody even carried a 25 caliber mandrel. Precision Reloading is a really good place to go and look for these tools, and for the US brand tools, as well as their own manufacturers' websites. So there we go. Just another aspect, another tool in your box for creating a better, more accurate load. I'm almost apologetic that this particular comparison that I chose to show you here didn't really do a whole lot different than the dies did with the expander ball. But what it's not going to show you is the consistency. You can see the roundness better. It's obviously the mandrel is rounder, so we're going to have more consistent neck tension diameter than an out of round expander ball would create. And again, I can't stress it enough, that's not the norm. Expander balls are generally all over the place, and you'll not find, well, there's only a couple of mandrel die makers that I can think of, but you're not going to find any of them that are going to be anywhere near as inconsistent as the expander balls in anybody's dies. Even top end quality dies from Reading or you know, Foster, RCBS competition dies, any one of the big name dies. You're not going to find anywhere near the consistency you'll find from a Mandrel die, or as you can get out of a Mandrel die, which is the reason that they're really so good. And I like Wilson. They're really comparable in price. So you're not really saving much difference. You do get a little more ability to fine tune your neck diameter that you can produce, but you start getting pretty deep in the rough. Yeah, you've got more adjustment, but do you need it? You know, is it going to make a appreciable difference? I think it can, but how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go, and how crazy do you want to make yourself? Sometimes you just don't need that kind of fine adjustment for the average guy. If you're a bench rester, trying to squeak out, trying to you know, get a name for yourself, trying to get a trophy, get a prize, to be the best of the best, okay, I can see it. But for your average hunter, or your guy who's just gonna get bragging rights with your buddy, this is going to be a big step up for you, and this is going to be something that'll allow you to produce a much more accurate, consistently accurate, and that's the key. A lot of people will have a firearm that'll shoot a touching 3-hole or 5-hole group at 100 yards, but can they consistently do it? Can they go out time and time again in all kinds of conditions and consistently shoot that way? And the answer is no. By and large, no. I can't do it all the time. I'm a probably better than average shooter, better than average shot, but I've also shot a whole lot more. I've competed a whole lot more. I've been a bullseye competitor for almost 40 years. And that level of shooting will allow you to be a much better overall shot across the board because of the discipline required for bullseye. But I'm not talking about me per se. I'm just saying that, you know, what you'll see for accuracy, consistency, a lot of times we don't like to admit, but it's us, the shooter, that's the variable. Our equipment is getting to the point where it's better than we are. So consistently being able to shoot an accurate group, taking out all the variables, is what we're doing here. This is removing or limiting a variable in your loading that will help you produce more consistently accurate loads. I hope I haven't gotten too deep in the weeds for you. I hope I haven't confused you more. I wished that I had shown you more of a difference between what this die can do and what the expander ball is doing for you, but it didn't on this one. And it's just because I happen to have a really good die set that I chose to use in the video. Maybe I'll do another one of these with another caliber down the road if I see one that's really been bad. This rifle has always been a really good shooter for me since I built it in 95. I think I built this, and this is probably a good portion of why it has been accurate, because the dies are producing good ammo. Again, I can ramble on forever. As you know, you watch my videos, you've seen they get longer and longer. God bless everybody. Hope you're having a great day. CW out.